Okay, so we're live then. This is the first episode of a conversational podcast that Julian and I decided to do together. Um, and this is going to be a discussion on various, topics of the day, relevant to the UK to start off, but relevant also globally. We're both in the finance slash economic sector, so the conversation will be more focused in those areas, I think. But hello, Julian. Do you want to give a quick intro of who you are and why you like this idea, or if you
Hello.
don't?
Thank you. Sure. No, excited. First podcast. Not sure what to expect. Not sure where the project is gonna go, but very keen, to get our thoughts out to the world. I think the podcast really, yeah. Let's see what topics we can cover. We're gonna cover. I think we're open to anything. Talk about life, and then see where it takes us.
And what do you do, Julian?
So what I do is I work in finance. I work in leverage finance essentially on the buy side. So we buy and sell leverage loans and we trade them. And then I guess in my free time these days, I do a lot of triathlon. I practice swimming, running, and biking quite a lot, given I'm going to do an Ironman in Italy in September. So yeah, hopefully that's going to go well.
Very good.
Yeah.
That's good. And so yeah, and I'm Jazz. I know Julian for many years, and I also work in the finance sector, but I'm more focused on the renewable energy finance area. So I do more project financing, but we're both on the, let's say we call it more on the debt side. So in that ways, it's we have some similarity there. And yeah, I'm not as fit as Julian, so I don't do triathlons. I just do martial arts and listen to some chill music in my free time. So
Awesome.
um,
How did you come up with the idea to do the podcast?
interesting one. I think that it's important to give a little bit. I think I've been consuming a lot of information, right? Because that's just part of our career, right? We have to consume a lot of information to be, up to date with what's happening and provide, advice to, clients and also to people who we do business with. But I thought after having done this for so many years, I do want to be a little bit more outward focused and at least provide whatever knowledge that or experience that I have gained to share it with people. And I couldn't think of another person else to do it with than you.
Yeah, awesome. I think it's not just career, no? I think the average person spends like something like 2 hours plus on social media every day. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook.
Exactly.
And how much of the 2 hours is actually spent, consuming versus creating. And probably, or at least for me, when I'm on social media or online, it's probably
Consuming.
98% consuming. Like
Exactly.
I hardly ever create. So yeah, quite excited by the opportunity to do that. Do you think the world needs another podcast?
Um, Probably not. Probably not. Not from a couple of amateurs, anyways. But why not? Yeah, we just try it out and see how it goes. Okay, so with that, shall we? So the first topic that we had in our mind, I'm just opening up the notes. So it was around. It's a topical issue, right? It's around what's happening in the globally, but let's call it more. It's more acute in the UK economy around inflation, higher interest rates, the impact it has on the common man. Mortgages, and really what's really happening in that area was the first episode that I think we could focus on. So I mean, maybe just to like kind of do a very high level overview. I mean, we know where we are, after COVID, a lot of stimulus in the economy, um, high inflation. The governments across the world are now trying to curb the inflation by raising interest rates. It's working in some areas, not working as well in other areas. The UK is a little bit more challenged for numerous reasons. We can go into it and discuss that. Um, but if I was to ask you, Julian, like, what is your view then? Is like the current state of the UK economy, and in the context of inflation, interest rates, where do you see things going? What's gone well? What's not gone well? Um, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. Maybe to take a step back, I think by now, I think we all can feel it that things are getting more expensive. I guess the number one thing that's getting more expensive is housing rents. I saw an article the other day that said London rent inflation is around 15% per year. I used to so when I got my first or when I moved into my first apartment where I was living by myself, not with any flatmates. That was I need to think. So that was maybe 2000, oof, 2018.
Hmm.
No, that was even before 2017. That was in Farringdon, very central. A very central apartment and one bedroom apartment. Really nice. I was working in the city. Farringdon is really, for people who don't know, in the bang in the center of London. And I was paying £1,700 for, like, normal size one bedroom apartment, as you would live in as a young professional. And then with the bills there would be maybe 1,900, £2,000, and that was okay. That really worked, and I was really happy. When I look at the rents that the same apartment, or similar apartments in the same house is now renting out for, then you're not looking at 1,700 anymore. You're looking at numbers which is like 2,300, something like this. So significant inflation, much more expensive. And I guess it's not just rents; it's in various sectors. I mean, if you own a house, mortgage rates have gone up from pretty much 1% or close to zero, 1-2% to now 6%, 6% plus.
Yeah.
And I think this is really where most people, at least when we think about our immediate environment, start to feel it, because landlords are raising rents, and one needs to pay that, and salaries are not keeping up with that. And I think that's probably something that people in the UK these days, when you think about the current macroeconomic environment, I think this is the first touch point that everybody will have with inflation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right there. I mean, housing as a whole here is really been under a lot of pressure, right? I mean, if you think about the kind of numbers you're mentioning for renting, that's as a proportion of a person's income or salary, that I was seeing somewhere that in the UK it's almost like a third. This was prior to all this increase in inflation and the increase in mortgage costs and rents. Now it may be as much as half of your especially in a place like London, it may just even be as much as half of a person's income of an average person. And if you think about that, on top of that you add the increase in other stuff, groceries and utilities, and what's happening with the increase in cost of electricity and transportation. It's a difficult situation, right? And I can give my context as well. I mean, I was lucky enough to buy before all the rates went up quite a bit, but I'm now in a difficult position because, I mean, as you know, in the UK, the structure is very different to how the lending works. Unlike the US, where you can, underwrite, you can get debt for essentially 30 years. In the UK, you have, 2 year, 5 year, maybe if you're lucky, then 10 years. But those are very rare products. Mostly it's 2 to 5 years fixed that you can get. So effectively, you have a variable rate mortgage. And so for a normal person, that's a very uncomfortable position to be in, because rates, like, if I borrowed at, like, let's say 3%, now it's 6. What does that mean? I mean, it means just if you for 100,000, like, for example, mortgage for a house, let's say, it goes up by £200 to £300 a month. So you can imagine, how acute the problem is. And So yeah, I think it's a let's just say that housing in this country is in a difficult situation or a difficult position.
But you came up with a pretty good tactic of how to mitigate that.
Oh, really? Oh, did I? Okay, that's okay. That's a good one. Mitigation, actually, because I think, yeah. I mean, as we know, I mean, mitigation is just for this thing is just if there was a silver bullet, then we would be billionaires if we could solve this problem, right? But I mean, it's a much wider problem and it's a global problem. So as we know, I mean, the government is trying different things to curb it. But what can we really do? I mean, if we focus the conversation to what can we really do, and this is where I want you to also write your thoughts. I thought, I mean, the most obvious thing is, and this is easier said than done, but till you are up for refinancing, right? Till you're at the time where you have to get onto the higher rate, it's a no-brainer. But a person like myself as well, I have to pay down as much debt as possible while the rate is still low, right? That's just an obvious one that I think everyone probably will need to do. But then I think the second one would be really, if there is an opportunity and if you have a slightly bigger house, then we all have to be prepared to start renting out a room to get some additional income to cover the costs, because we may not have thought of it that way, but now we're in this position where everything has to be on the table.
Is that something you're doing? Yes.
Unfortunately, not as much, but because it was a personal decision. But now I think, I mean, do I have to think about it? Maybe not.
What about Airbnb? I hear more and more people doing Airbnb. They go on holiday, they go visit their family, and then while the flat is empty, they profit from Airbnb having people here.
Yeah.
And then also when you look at inflation, it's not just rents that have gone up.
Yeah.
Also hotel Airbnb prices, so you can.
Everything has gone up. Yeah. I mean.
So that can help a lot.
It can help a lot, but as you know, I mean, in a market like the UK, London, there are different rules and regulations to follow, and I think everyone has to look at what their individual situation is, what's allowed and what's not allowed. But in general, I think it's, if a person is comfortable and flexible enough to do this, then it's just something that you have to be open to, I think.
Do you think there are sometimes rules that don't allow it?
Of course. There are definitely rules, and this is where we can go into the UK structure of freehold, leasehold, and etc. But not to bore everyone. But of course, I think the rights of owners are they can be limited to some extent in terms of what they can do as well. So it's a bit. Let's just say it's a very tricky situation.
Okay, tricky. Housing goes up, but I guess what we say is more and more people do Airbnb, rent out a room, these kind of things.
Yeah. What else do you think? I mean, what else comes to your mind? I mean, in terms of just. If you think about practical things, right? And I don't want to give generic stuff like budget and save more, because that's everyone, if they could do it, they would do it, right? But if you think about actual sort of stuff that people can do, obviously you pay down your debt, that's one. Try to get more money, that's two. What else do you think, by renting out your room, what else do you think people can do?
Maybe be healthy, cycle everywhere. So I've been trying to cycle a bit more.
Yeah.
To say I was always quite lazy. Took the subway everywhere.
Yeah.
That can be an option which is more fun, probably faster as well.
Yeah.
If you're in a city and completely free.
Yeah.
So cycling, and plus you do a triathlon. It's automatic training, and you're not even training. You're just going somewhere where you need to go anyways.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that comes to mind.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair one. I was also seeing that there is more. Measures now around, the government is saying around, getting, having the lenders be more open to, switching products to being, interest only, for example, versus the normal pay down, which is the principal plus interest, which is for a normal mortgage. So that was another one which is on the table. So I think everyone should, to the extent that they are open to it, they should speak to their lender and try to see what else is out there to move to another product, for example, interest only, or increase the tenor of their loan. Again, there are pros and cons to it, because if you increase the tenor, then you're paying out more interest as well. But if it reduces the burden temporarily, at least in the short run. So there are different things like this which people can be open to.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. So we talked about what's the problem now, what can people do. So what's the outlook? Do you think this situation is going to stay like this on the inflation? Do you think that's going to change? What's your view?
Yeah, I think, the UK is in a more, if you're talking about the UK specifically, right, because that's where we are at the moment, the UK is in a more, I think, slightly more difficult position, right, than the rest of the world right now. But there are many reasons for it, and not to go into that and make it a.
What's the reasons?
As we know, right, it's all contributed. Well, of course, the most obvious one is that there are barriers now after Brexit of importing stuff, right, which we didn't have earlier. So that immediately makes important goods more expensive. So that's one obvious one. Then of course, less people are coming in, so there's labor shortages as well, which is more of an acute problem here in the UK, I think. So that all contributes to it, and maybe those things are not as common or specific to other countries. Like I mean, it's problem everywhere, but I think it's more acute in the UK, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's there. But outlook wise, there are some green shoots, right? Like we saw the other day, I think on Friday, I think last week. So it's 16th of July, I think. So I think a couple of days ago in the US, inflation has come down 3%.
Mm-hmm.
In Europe, it's varying, right? But in Spain, I saw it's less than 2%. So
Mm-hmm.
it looks like it's coming down now, right? So maybe the outlook is becoming better. That's what I think. At least there are some green shoots. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, inflation is coming down. I think it's going to take a little bit longer than what we hoped for. Also, even if inflation is down and rates stay high, some of the problems you mentioned, especially around housing, is not going to ease off that quickly. But I think we're on a good path. Interest rates are high, labor market is getting a bit weaker, so I think we should be coming back. It's just going to probably take another year or two.
Yeah.
Until we reach these, comfortable levels of around 2%. But okay, good. So we wanted to keep this one short.
Yes, exactly.
The two questions I had for you. So it's probably quite a dry topic to start off.
Exactly.
But before we, wrap it up, the two questions I had for you is one, what can we expect next week? Any ideas for other topics? And then two, what's the name of this podcast?
Oh wow, you're really putting me on the spot there. Let's start with the first one, which is, what can we talk about next week? I don't know.
I've got an idea.
Okay.
Fitness.
Amazing. Yeah. Because I think, is it fair that we want it to be, obviously, we want it to be around, business and economic, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to also talk about fitness, nutrition, health. That's also an area that we want to focus on. Yeah. Okay, fine. So what about fitness do you want to talk about next week?
Yeah, let's see, general fitness. Maybe.
Okay. Yeah, let's make it some practical. We can talk about
your
what
experience,
are the things, yeah, exactly.
What you're doing,
what things we're doing, because we are a bit,
and why,
yeah,
and what's the point, and can we improve
exactly. Okay, let's talk about that next week. I'm going to pause on the topic of the name of the pod because we don't know right now. So, but that's something we need to discuss and figure out.
And where can I find this podcast?
This is going to be on YouTube, obviously. That's where we're going to post it. I think nowhere else at this point. We'll figure it out.
Perfect.
All right.
With that,
thank you.
Let's wrap
nice
it up.
to meet you. And yeah, we can do the conversation next week.